because of Halloween. Crabs on Prozac. A man has his testicles stolen at the spa, and spontaneous combustion. All this coming up on a new series on my channel I have deemed Freaky Friday. Weird news from around the world. Before the video gets started, I wanted to take a second and say thank you to my Patreon patrons. And as a special thank you to them, and to those thinking about joining, I'm uploading 12. That's right, 12 Patreon-only stories this month, so it's a good time to think about joining. That being said, let's get on to the video. First up, a story titled Crabs on Prozac are becoming aggressive, engaging in fights, and even killing each other while on the drug. Prozac is a pharmaceutical drug used to treat depression and other mental health-related conditions in humans. To be clear, depressed crabs are not being prescribed Prozac by doctors, but they are ingesting it because Prozac can dissolve in seawater. Researchers at Portland State University have discovered that seawater near the coast can contain small levels of different chemicals ranging from caffeine to prescription drugs. So they investigated the impact of dissolved Prozac on the local crab population and discovered that when crabs consume Prozac, they engage in risky behavior, which increases their chance of dying. Oregon shore crabs exposed to fluoxetine, the active ingredient in Prozac, started foraging on the shoreline during the day rather than at night, making them more susceptible to being eaten by predators. They were also more aggressive toward each other, picking fights and sometimes killing each other. The changes we observed in their behaviors may mean that crabs living in harbors and estuaries contaminated with fluoxetine are at a greater risk of predation and mortality. This was said by a researcher named Elise Granick, a professor in PSU's Department of Environmental Sciences and Management. The drugs are consumed by people, who then excrete the products in their urine. This is then transported to the sewage system, where the waste is treated, but the trace elements are not removed, and finally, it enters the sea. This study is important because it shows how drugs designed for humans can enter the environment and have significant impact on other creatures. Up next is an Italian family who reported to have such a high threshold to feeling pain that they barely notice when they burn themselves or break a bone. 6 members of the Marsili family have this strange medical condition that is so rare and unique that doctors have named it the condition Marsili syndrome. Letizia Marsili knew she was different from childhood when she noticed she experienced pain in a totally different way than other children, not crying and screaming when she got cuts, bruises, or burns. Now that she's 52, Letizia says the condition is a blessing and a curse. From day to day, we live a very normal life, perhaps better than the rest of the population because we rarely get unwell and we hardly feel any pain. We do feel pain, however, but the perception of pain only lasts for a few seconds. While skiing, Letizia broke her right shoulder, but she didn't even notice. She continued skiing and only discovered the extent of her injury when she visited a hospital after feeling a tingling sensation in her fingers. The grandmother came off of an escalator and broke her ankle. She went to the doctor, who took her x-ray and said that she not only broke her ankle, but she'd broken her ankle before. The researchers have discovered that the family's high pain tolerance is due to a genetic mutation in the ZFHX2 gene. The discovery came after many years of investigation, and it's likely to have a huge influence on future pain relief drugs. By identifying this mutation and clarifying that it contributes to the family's pain and sensitivity, we have opened up a whole new route to drug discovery for pain relief. Speaking of pain, a Russian man who met a sexy woman and took her to a sauna woke up to discover his testicles had been removed by an organ donor criminal gang. UK and Russian news reports say that Dmitry Nikolaev, a Russian soap opera actor, met the mystery woman at a Moscow bar. After drinking and kissing, she invited him to a sauna. There, according to the police report, they kissed and drank more before Nikolaev passed out. I met a girl at the bar. We went to a sauna for a taxi. I remembered I had a beer, but I don't remember anything else, said Nikolaev. When he woke up the next morning at a bus stop, his groin was in agony, and his trousers were covered in blood. The 30-year-old got himself to a hospital where doctors broke the news that he had been castrated. Doctors said he had been drugged and his testicles removed by an expert. It was a clean cut, and the skin had been cauterized, suggesting the work of a doctor or even a vet. Police haven't been able to contact the woman, but say that she's probably a member of a gang that sells human organs on the black market. Now, this next one took me a minute to wrap my head around, but apparently, Tina Gibson from Tennessee recently became a mother to a baby conceived just 18 months after she herself was born. Emma Wren Gibson, born on November 25, 2017, first came to being in 1992 when her embryo was created in a fertility lab from an anonymous donor. Soon after conception, the embryo was frozen and remained frozen for 24 years, until 2017, when she was defrosted and implanted into Tina Gibson, who herself was only born in 1991. Let me clarify. The mother and the child that she gave birth to were both at one time frozen embryos, but 18 months apart. Baby Emma now holds the title of the longest known frozen human embryo to result in a successful birth. The birth mother told CNN, "You realize I'm only 25. This embryo and I could have been best friends. I just wanted a baby, and I didn't care if it was a world record or not." Emma's dad, Benjamin, suffers from male infertility due to cystic fibrosis, was quoted as saying, "I think she looks pretty perfect to have been frozen all those years ago." Frozen babies created in labs for IVF are also known as snow babies. Medically, the amount of time an embryo is frozen is not the main influence on whether it will lead to a successful birth. It is when the embryo is thawed out that the risks occur. If an embryo survives the defrosting process, it is no less likely than any other embryo to result in a healthy pregnancy. The Gibsons' world record-breaking birth was thanks to the National Embryo Donation Center, and the anonymous donors wanted their unused embryos to be available for a couple struggling with infertility. The doctor overseeing the embryo transfer told NBC News, "It's kind of neat that this embryo was conceived just a year or so before the mother was." The National Embryo Donation Center is a faith-based fertility treatment center, and they only treat infertile couples who have been married for at least 3 years. And last but certainly not least, police in London are investigating a mysterious case of spontaneous human combustion after a man burst into flames in the middle of a London street. John Nolan, a 70-year-old Irishman, was walking down a street in North London in September of 2017, when, according to reports, he spontaneously caught fire. Police and fire services were called to the scene, but by then it was too late to save him. Detectives investigating the strange case say the cause of Nolan's death is unexplained. No flammable objects were found on him, and specialist fire investigators could find no reason for why the former construction worker caught fire and died. The unexplained case is still open, and the police are appealing for more witnesses. We've spoken with a number of witnesses who saw Mr. Nolan ablaze, but we have yet to establish how the fire started. Mr. Nolan was a well-liked member of the community, and none of our inquiries so far have indicated that he had been involved in a dispute of any sort, nor does any account given by the witnesses suggest that he had been in contact with another person at the time of the fire. Spontaneous human combustion is an unexplained phenomenon, but experts believe it may be possible, in very rare occasions, for a body to ignite from the inside. Bernard Knight, a pathologist who conducted over 20,000 autopsies for the UK government, believes the strange case will be solved. For someone to walk out onto the streets and just burst into flames is extremely peculiar. In the course of my career, I saw maybe 3 or 4 cases of so-called spontaneous combustion, but they were all indoors, near an open fireplace. In one case, the body had burned through the floor. This is very unusual, because this took place outside. But a failure to find a cause doesn't mean that there isn't one. I would love to know your thoughts in the comments section below. I hope you enjoyed this segment. I'm trying it out to see how you guys like it, as I personally love a good story that's bizarre. If you have something crazy that happened to you, or you have a story idea to suggest for this segment, email it to me at duchessdark676@gmail.com. See you tomorrow and every night all month long at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.